Let's dive into one of history's most fascinating puzzles. We're talking about how incredible, massive civilizations, empires with millions of people were built without the one thing we always think of as the foundation of progress, the wheel.
Okay, I want you to picture this. It's 1519. You're a Spanish conquistador, and you have been marching for weeks. You finally get to the top of a hill and you see it, Tenochtitlan, the Aztec capital, and it just takes your breath away. It's this amazing city floating on a lake, an absolute engineering marvel. It's bigger, it's cleaner, and way more organized than any city you've ever seen back in Europe. But as you look closer, you notice something really, really weird. There are no carts, no wagons, no chariots. Nothing is rolling.
And that right there is the big question, isn't it? Why did the Aztecs, the Maya, the Inca, civilizations that were masters of astronomy and architecture and farming, why did they completely skip the practical use of the wheel? You might think, well, maybe they just didn't know about it. But the real answer is so much more clever and honestly, more brilliant than that.
All right, so to really get to the bottom of this, we have to bust the biggest myth right off the bat. This whole idea that they just didn't know what a wheel was.
Because, get this, archaeologists all over Mesoamerica have found these incredible little clay figurines. They're often shaped like dogs or other animals, and guess what? They have fully working wheels and axles. I mean, these things prove, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that they totally understood the mechanics. The concept, it was there.
So this just makes the mystery even deeper, right? If they were making little wheeled toys for their kids to play with, why on earth didn't they ever build a full-size cart? It tells us the problem wasn't a lack of knowledge at all. The problem was all about practicality. And that brings us to the first huge hurdle they faced.
You see, a wheel is pretty useless by itself. I mean, for a cart or a wagon to actually be effective, you need something to pull it. You need an engine. And long before steam power, that engine had to be an animal.
And this, right here, gets to the absolute heart of the issue. In the old world, Europe, Asia, Africa, societies domesticated horses for their speed, oxen for their raw strength, and donkeys for their endurance. But in the Americas, the native horses had actually gone extinct thousands of years before. The biggest animals they domesticated were dogs, too small to pull anything heavy, and turkeys, which were, for dinner. Down in South America, you had the llama. And llamas, well, they can carry a pretty good load on their back, but they are famously stubborn. If you try to hitch a llama to a cart, it will literally just lie down and refuse to move. No joke.
So here's the crucial takeaway. Without an animal engine, a person would have to do the pulling. And basic physics tells us that when a person tries to pull a heavy cart, they lose a ton of energy just to friction. It is actually way more efficient for a human to carry that exact same weight directly on their back. A cart without a horse is really just dead weight.
But let's just say they had the perfect draft animal. Even then, there was another massive roadblock. The very land they lived on was completely hostile to the wheel.
Think back to Tenochtitlan. It wasn't just built near a lake, it was built in the middle of one. It was a city of canals and waterways. Water was their superhighway. A single canoe could glide across the water carrying way more cargo than any cart with almost zero effort and drop it off right in the city center. And the land around the city, it was all mountains and swamps, a total nightmare for wheels.
And if you think the Aztec land was tough, oh man, just look at the Inca in the Andes Mountains. They built this unbelievable 40,000-kilometer road network. But this road system was made for people and llamas to walk on. To get up and down these incredibly steep mountain slopes, they didn't build long, winding roads that a cart could go up. Nope, they built stairs. Thousands and thousands of stairs. A wheeled cart is completely 100% useless on a staircase.
So, let's recap. No animal engine and terrain that made wheels a terrible idea. How did they manage to supply massive cities and move huge armies? Well, they didn't need to invent a new machine because they had already perfected one, the human body.
In Aztec society, this wasn't just some random job. It was a highly respected profession. They were called the tlamame, professional porters who trained from childhood to carry heavy loads over incredible distances. These guys were the trucks and the trains at the Aztec Empire. They were the logistical network that kept everything moving like clockwork. Now get this, the standard load for one of these porters was a staggering 23 kilograms. That's about 50 pounds. And they would carry that for over 20 kilometers day in and day out. These were legit endurance athletes.
And the secret to their amazing efficiency wasn't just brute strength, it was a piece of truly ingenious technology. This is the macapa. At first glance, it just looks like a simple strap, but it is a biomechanical masterpiece. See, by placing the strap across the forehead, it transfers the entire weight of the cargo away from the shoulders and directly down through the powerful spine and into the leg muscles. And unlike a modern backpack that squishes your chest, this thing leaves your chest completely free, making it so much easier to breathe on those long hikes. It is the perfect example of low-tech, high-concept genius.
So when you put all these pieces together, you've got the toys, the lack of animals, the impossible geography, and this incredible human solution. It really forces us to stop and rethink what progress even looks like. We have this tendency to think of technology like it's a single ladder that every civilization has to climb, one rung at a time in the exact same order. But what if that's all wrong? What if it's not a ladder at all? What if it's more like a branching tree? The Aztec and the Inca, they weren't behind because they didn't have the wheel. They were just on a different branch, a branch that grew perfectly in response to their unique world and their unique needs.
So, in the end, the mystery of the missing wheel in the Americas, it wasn't a failure of imagination. Not at all. It was a sign of profound intelligence. It was the ability to look at a problem and create the absolute best, most elegant, and most efficient solution for a world that didn't have horses, a world of mountains and canals. And it's a great reminder that true genius isn't about having every tool in the toolbox. It's about absolutely mastering the ones that you need.